Hello and welcome to Propel 2021. My name is Janice Rogers. I work for the Answer Company as an implementation consultant. Today we would like to talk about AP automation and how you can scan your AP bills directly into Acumatica to make your workflow for accounts payable more efficient and running smoothly. So what I'd like to do is show you a bit of a slideshow first, just to introduce you to some of the features, and then we will dive into the software and give you an idea of what this looks like. So AP automation. AP document recognition is about being able to scan and have your AP documents directly in the system, and to be able to automatically recognize or read the details of the AP bill. So basically, it's going to look at your invoice, the invoice number, the date, the amount, and the detailed line items, and try to enter all of that into the system for you. After it's tried its best to recognize the details, then a user will come in and review and finalize that, and then continue processing accounts payable bills as it normally would. Since the time of creating this, the version of 2021 R1 has added some additional features, which include being able to recognize inventory items that are alternate numbers from your supplier. So if you've created a PO and sent that off to your vendor and their invoice shows their invoice or inventory ID, if you've created an inventory alternate ID in the system, it will be able to recognize that. Or if you haven't got that created, the system will allow you to create that alternate ID as you're entering the invoice. In this version, you can also link this to a purchase order or a receipt and be able to complete your bill through that. Now, I'm not going to show that today as I am not working on the latest feature, but we'll show you the overall process so that you can get an idea of what this AP document recognition feature is all about. So there's two ways to get PDF documents into the system. You can manually drag and drop the files or browse to upload a file that might have been saved somewhere on your server, or even a better way is to create a dedicated email account where your suppliers can send their documents to you by email. And what the system does is it automatically reads those PDF documents and uploads those documents directly into our AP document recognition part of the software. So we'll talk about that shortly and show you how that works. Once you purchase the document recognition service, in your features, your license, you'll see this highlighted additional feature which you will select to get this operational. Once this is selected, there is an additional menu in accounts payable, which we'll show you shortly. And just a note that this document recognition service is only available in versions of Acumatica 2020 R2 or higher. So again, we talked about setting up a dedicated email account where your suppliers can send their invoices to you. So this is showing you a snapshot of the window where we would set up our email account. So typically, currently, you might have this same account set up using this email system to send emails out, but this one is additional features where you're actually allowing the system to receive emails. So down in the bottom half, you can see the submit incoming documents is basically saying any documents attached to these emails are going to be added to the document recognition features. So just an overview of the workflow. So step one is to get those documents into the system, either by manually dragging and dropping, bringing them into the system, or by any emails that are coming into the system with a PDF document attached to it. The second step is to recognize the document. So Acumatica is going to scan the document in detail and try its best to add all the details to your AP billing window. And then the final step is for the user to review all of that and fix up or add anything that might be missing. And then from there, that document is sent to accounts payable, and it continues on the normal process of releasing your AP bills. All right, so let's dive into the software and give you a view of what this all looks like. So once this feature is activated in your license, you will notice in our accounts payable menu that we have an additional menu here under transactions. So any documents coming into this window, either manually or through the email, will be sitting in here. And you notice that we have a status for each one of these. Anything in green means it has been processed and now is in the accounts payable regular bills and memos window. If we take a look at our bills and adjustments window, you can see documents that have come from there. So for example, if I come back here and click on the link, it will take me to the invoice that has been previously been recognized. And from here, the user would carry on looking at the details, making sure everything is okay, taking it off hold and releasing. But prior to this step, your invoices will live in here until the status says processed. We can see the filter if we take a look at the pending processing, then a user might come in here to work with your documents and start getting them going so that they are recognized and sent into accounts payable. You can also click on this one, which filters out all records, and it shows you all of the invoices that have been processed. So obviously these ones are in green to let the user know that these have now been taken care of. So typically you're going to be spending most of your time in the pending area. Again, these are invoices that are not yet recognized within the accounts payable function. They're still sitting in a pending stage, waiting for a user to continue on with it. So let's show you how this works. I'm going to upload manually an invoice. So I have an invoice on my desktop here. So by clicking on the plus sign, I am able to simply drag and drop this invoice into here. Now you can also go into the files function and just click on browse and go ahead and find your scanned PDF somewhere else in the system and bring it in. So both ways work. Now notice the status says pending recognition. Now this is actually a good process to show you that the system has already recognized this document, as I've uploaded it twice, so that's why it's done this. And it would let me open up that duplicate document. But from here, basically you click on the recognize button and it will begin the process to recognize all the details of this invoice. So let's go into one that has been recognized. Notice this is still sitting in pending. So a user would typically come in and click on that recognize button. So these ones have been recognized. So let's take a look at one of them. So just because it's recognized doesn't mean it's finalized. So the user needs to come in and take a look at the details to make sure it's okay. Now, at this stage, they could save and continue and just pop it into accounts payable and continue on there as well. But the idea of recognizing is that you want to teach the system as it's learning its bills to recognize where the information is coming from. Now, the vendor may be tricky to pick up because your vendor IDs may be different than what your vendor or suppliers supplying you with. Now, in this case, I've created some of these invoices just as an example. So you could, if you had vendor IDs, you could let your customer or suppliers know, please add your customer account somewhere on your invoice, which could be recognized in here. So that could just be an added feature for you. So with your mouse in the field that you want to recognize, we can click on this and have the system pop that into that field. And notice it did find that vendor in the system very quickly and updated the location, its currency, the terms, and it's ready to start the process. If we take a look at the date and click on this field, in red, it shows you where it found that field. So if for some reason it was in the wrong spot or not pointing to the right place, you could just click on another field and say, nope, that's not where you get the invoice date. Obviously, it's going to find the post period based on your date. The vendor's invoice number, it found it over here. If for some reason, again, if it was wrong, you could click and point elsewhere. Invoice description, you may choose somewhere on the invoice that you want it to use. I'm going to just click on part of the vendor's name because that's a good description as to what it is we purchased. So down in the details section, it found some of these rows to update. Now, I don't want it to import or update the subtotal or sales tax in this way. So just simply by clicking on the row, you can just click on the delete button and just get rid of that row. Down at the bottom, we have our detailed total amount of the invoice. But now we need to tell the system what the total amount of the invoice is. So again, by clicking within the field that we want it to recognize and then click on the field on the invoice, we're telling it where it should get that information in the future. Now, it will recognize inventory items if your vendor has identified that. And as we mentioned earlier, in the most recent update, version of Acumatica, it can also search for your vendor's alternate ID in the system or can be created on the fly as a cross-reference. At this point, everything else looks good, so we can click on Save and Continue. So just as a reminder, we are in the Incoming Documents form. If we click Save and Continue, it's now going to pop this invoice into our Bills and Adjustments window. At this stage, the user could just save and close and let somebody else take care of it. It's in the hold stage at this point, so we can continue to edit this invoice if we need to, such as GL account and other things, maybe a project or additional information before you release it. As you saw on the incoming form, it only has a certain portion of the details. It does not have GL accounts if you do need to fill that out. At this point, I'm just going to take it off hold and release it so that it can carry on. Now, depending on your processes, you may have pending approvals in here as well or pre-release. So obviously from here on in, it will be able to identify and carry on the process of what you normally do. Just to show you now that invoice that we just released, notice the paperclip, which is identifying that there's an attachment, which is showing you the scanned image of your document. So let's go back now to our incoming documents. If we look at the processed, we can see that our Becker Roofing invoice has now been processed and it's marked as green. We no longer need to deal with it. If we go back to our pending processes, so we can see invoices that are coming in through the dedicated email account. Now, you may find some vendors or suppliers may also send you their vendor statements to show you all the invoices outstanding. Of course, we don't want the system to recognize those. So in those cases, if you need to, you can delete them when you open it up, or you can select it here and delete it as well. So again, not all documents coming in by email may be an invoice, but hopefully most of them are if it's a specific dedicated email account. Let's go back into this one. Actually, this one was not recognized very well. Let's try this one here. So this one is not recognized. So if you do find an issue where it hasn't recognized the details, you can add a line. And under the transaction description, you can point and click to what you want. So if I want services provided, now here's a little trick on extended words within a line. If you just click on a word, it's going to pop that into my description. But if I want the whole row or the whole line in here, I can just click on that. You can see when you hover over the whole row, it shows the entire row instead of just one word. Now in this case, because there's no columns, it's brought in the invoice amount as well. So we could manually delete that if we want to. And then when we come over here, we can point to the amount. It doesn't want to cooperate very well today. I'm going to just cheat a little bit here. So it hasn't recognized the vendor. Now, in this case, we've created the customer ID. We've asked the supplier to add this to their invoice. So we can click on that, and then very quickly it will find the rest of that. It's found the invoice date. It's found the invoice number. We just need a description in here. So let's just put in the project, and maybe we want to add a little bit of additional information. Then in the grand total, we want to make sure that the detail matches the actual invoice total. So if we scroll down and tell it where the invoice total is, just to make sure it matches. Now, as you're pointing and clicking and teaching the system where certain fields are, it will begin to learn some of this for future recognition. At this stage, we can save and continue. And again, we carry on deciding if we want to add further information or keep on hold or release it. This hopefully was just a brief overview of how the document scanning works. If there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to give you a personalized demo, or if you have any additional questions. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.